I'd like to share a little story with you about how a host can make or break your show. Now, a few years ago, I was working with a guest up in Canada, and this guest is a very, very famous international socialite, and she still is to this day. Now, this guest also speaks in a very heavily accented dialect of English. Her native tongue definitely comes into play, and it is a very definite accent, and I can't even repeat it to you because then you would know who this person is. So we're just going to leave it at that. So one day, this guest calls me up and says, "Kellie, can you do me a favor?" And I said, "Sure, what is it? Anything for you." I am launching a brand new product, and it is called a bubbling bath oil. Yes, and bath oils normally don't bubble now, do they? All right. And she asked me, would you please promote it ahead of time, meaning a week before I come to air? Would you talk about it in your shows and let people know that it's coming up? So, of course, I said, for you, anything, because this woman had done her job. She had made me her best friend. So because there was a relationship, I wanted to go out of my way, above and beyond the call of duty, to help her make her product sell. Okay, makes sense? Absolutely it does. We all want to help people who are our friends. So I also asked my fellow hosts to promote it in their shows to also help her with her sales. Perfect. So needless to say, she gets on air, we launch the product, and it is flying. It is screaming. It's on fire. Sales are off the chart. So her and I are laughing, and we're having a good time on the set. Now, got to picture this, all right? So she's talking in her fabulously accented English. She now has the product in her hands. And remember, this is called a bubbling bath oil. There's a close-up on her with the product and on her face. And in her heavily accented dialect of English, she then proceeds to say, she starts calling it the bubbling bath oil, the bubbling bath oil, and somehow it comes out completely different than the name bubbling bath oil. And to give you just a little bit of a hint, let's just say it has something to do with a particular part of the anatomy and bubbling. Anyway, needless to say, as soon as she said this, and it was a close-up on her face with her product, I start laughing hysterically. And then I'm zipping it up, trying to contain my laughter. And she looks at me, and she's in a close-up on the camera, and she goes, "What? What's so funny? What are you laughing at?" And I zip it up, and I go, "Nothing." And she keeps looking at me, and she keeps talking and calling it the bubbling bath oil, the bubbling bath oil. And the more she says that, the more I laugh. And then she looks at me again, and she goes, "What's so funny? It's not supposed to do that." Well, as soon as she said that, I could not contain myself anymore. I was just laughing. Now, at this point, the entire crew had left the studio. That's right, Elvis had left the building on this one. The only person left was one man manning a camera because he had to be there, and he was laughing so hard. The camera was going up and down like this. Oh, my goodness. Now, anyway, fast forward. Here was a very uncomfortable, awkward, yet funny situation. Now, I had a choice. I could have let this go and continued with the laughter, or I could have zipped it up, tidied it up, brushed this little situation underneath the carpet, because everyone at home, I'm sure, heard the same thing we all heard. So I did what a good host does, and I do what a host does who has become friends with the guest. I took care of the situation. I made an uncomfortable, funny, yet funny situation completely disappear, and I made her, the guest, be like the rock star, be like the superstar that she is. So I took an awkward, albeit funny, situation and turned it into a truly memorable moment. Now, conversely, if you do not make the host your best friend, I'm going to give you another example of what may happen. And it's, again, on one of my stories. I was selling a sports memorabilia product up in Toronto again, and it was a full-hour show. Now, the guest, who I'd never met, who had never worked with me before, comes bullying his way into the studio, walks right up to me, is totally rude to me, not nice, mean-spirited, introduces himself, tells me about his product. So me, being the enthusiastic host that I am, I go, "Oh, that's great. We can talk about this, and we can talk about this, and we can talk about this, and oh, it's going to sell." Because hosts are enthusiastic. So he takes one look at me like this, and he goes, "Curb your enthusiasm. You can put music up for this product, and it's going to sell." Well, I took one look at him, and I said, "Really now? So, you can put music up and you think this product's going to sell?" He said, "Absolutely." So, the show starts. I introduce the show. I introduce the lineup of the hour. I introduce the guest. I start off the first product. And then for the rest of the hour, I said nothing. And every time he looked at me, I do one of these. Now, the reason that happened was because the guy wasn't nice. You know, you need to have a working relationship with your host. Now, I will say this. In retrospect, looking back, I would never do that today, nor would any great host do that today. I mean, that's just not nice, not nice, because the ultimate responsibility of the host is to make your product sell. But I'm using that as an example for you. I want you to see how important it is for you to make the host your best friend. Because truly, a host can make or break your show.